not being careful enough. Are the Hemingway scholars going to tear him a new one, as they say? Okay, getting to the other questions. RSS. I believe Ralph Smith. Yes, I think that is how Ralph designates himself. Question for Dave. Do you consider anti-work and anti-ability, again, I've seen lots of both, to be implicit in your consideration of feminism's negative impact on society? Certainly your own work/ability/success was impeded at the very least. Ralph, or RSS, if Ralph, I think that you're asking two different questions there. I'll address the side of anti-work and anti-ability, which I'm assuming is another one of those extreme progressive viewpoints that we're all having to get used to. Just when you think they can't go any further, they go that much further. And I think what needs to be understood is the explanation, or what I see as the explanation of the anti-work and anti-ability sensibility, which I jotted down a note here. I consider it institutionalized grasshopperness, in the sense of the ant and the grasshopper. These are people who are not only by nature grasshoppers, but extreme versions of grasshoppers who have come to the belief that it's oppressive to make people work who don't want to work, that it's basically the equivalent of slavery, and that it's oppressive to make people work who have no ability or talents to make more than minimum wage. And I don't think this is going away. I think this is something that as a society we're going to have to say, we've progressed this far with the Judeo-Christian work ethic, with the welfare state grafted onto it, and we have to understand that there is this opposing viewpoint that wants to separate completely from our traditional perception of what a society is. And I made the note of what I would describe as getting up at the crack of noon video game addicts, where if you said to any one of those people, okay, we're just going, instead of you having to go and work somewhere and earn $800, $1,200 a month, we're going to give you $2,000 a month. And for the rest of your life, however old you are right now, like 20, 21, until you're 80 or 90 years old, all you will have to do is sleep and eat and play video games. To me, that's a living nightmare to even contemplate. But to an enormous chunk of the population, particularly, I would suggest, boys who have been reared by feminists or have been reared by feminist rules, that sounds perfect to them. If they never had to deal with anybody and all they had to do was sleep and get up at the crack of noon and play video games, the only question that I see as not being answered there is how many of them are there, and what percentage are they of any given population? the reason that I say that is because if this is something that we can't get rid of as a society, and I suspect it's something that we can't get rid of as a society, then we're going to have to determine how much is it going to cost to remove those people from the equation, to basically say, okay, we'll take you at face value. This is how you want to live. This is how you're going to live. How much is it going to cost us to pay you to basically just read video games or play video games for the rest of your life? So that's category number one, crack of noon video game players. Category number two, what percentage want to be doing something else besides their job, something they love but aren't and never will be good at? So that's here, we'll pay you $2,000 a month to be the world's worst ballerina. The problem with that one is if you don't make them prima ballerina of a major ballet company, they'll just double down and say, the reason that you won't make me the prima ballerina of a major ballet company is racism or misogyny or homophobia or Islamophobia if they're Muslims. Victimology is the gift that keeps on giving. That, I would suggest, would be the trade-off. If, as taxpayers, we agree to pay you a survival-based guaranteed income, and I think we could probably all agree that virtually any North American could get by on $2,000 a month. They're not going to be rich, but they're not going to be poor, and it's it'll buy you a certain number of minor luxuries. This is the trade-off that we would be looking at. If we do that, then your side of the deal is you officially and legally abandon your victim leverage. You can no longer be a victim of anything, and we don't want to hear from you. You're not allowed to go to protests. This is what we're going to consider the investment is. However, we're going to try and run this society so that we're improving, and we're getting back in the direction of excellence. We're never going to get back in the direction of excellence until we find a way to move the people out of our society that want to be moved out of our society. They don't agree with this society. They don't agree with anything having to do with the Enlightenment. They're not interested in anything besides video games or whatever it is that they're interested in. It seems to me that it would be a small price to pay, relatively speaking, when we're already talking about quantities of money that will never exist, never have existed, and couldn't possibly be printed, even if you printed $10,000 bills. It would still take two presidential administrations to even try and begin to print the amount of money that the Biden administration is talking about making exist. Let's lean into it. So that how many number ones, the crack of noon video game people, and how many people who are just competent at whatever they love, so you'll be paying them to do something that they will never do professionally, are there, and how many can we afford as a country? And each country, I think, would have to ask themselves that particular question. Canada can only afford X number of them because we're Canada. The United States could probably afford more of them than just about anybody. And that's my best answer so far in terms of I have to look with one eye at, okay, here's where we are as a society. I know where we used to be. That's very, very different from where we are. Presumably, you can plot a line from where we were to where we are to where we're going to be. And I think that's where the line goes in that direction. The second half of RSS's question is certainly your own work / ability / success was impeded at the very least. I think that's because I probably know or have much better theories that fit known facts when it comes to feminism than virtually anyone else. And the feminists of at least since issue 186 have been trapped in the unenviable position of what do we do about this guy? We can't really afford to make him into a martyr, because if you make him into a martyr, then whatever hope that they have that Cerebus and all of Dave Sims' works and all of his letters and everything else will be completely eradicated and we'll never have to worry about them again. I don't think that's going to happen. The further along feminism goes, we're into year number 50 now, 51 actually, the more all of those very simple questions that I asked in tangent almost 20 years ago now, those questions still exist. It's not a matter of, okay, well, we've answered all of those questions, we've solved all that. No, you destroyed the person who was asking the question. That's the complete opposite of answering the questions. So I think that's not what happened to me. It wasn't an anti-work, anti-ability thing, although there was probably a certain amount of jealousy there that the anti-work, anti-ability people would direct at me. I think it's far more I was one of the few people to pose questions about feminism and to frame them in terms of the 16 impossible things to believe before breakfast. And I would, as someone who comes from a debate-minded background, I would really not want to be in the situation of having to defend feminism in a debate where you were allowed to say what you have to say and you were allowed to pose the questions that you want to pose. So, how did we do on that one? That was about 10 minutes. We're doing not too bad. The Diet Coke